Bob Miller, Jeffrey Jukes, and Paul Dibb. It had a vibrant department of Russian language, where such specialists as Roche Ireland, Margaret Travis, and Kevin Windle trained some of the best language students in the country. The teaching of Russian language was complemented not only by high caliber research in the Research School of Asian Pacific Studies, but also by teaching of such courses as Theory and Practice of Marxism, Politics in the Soviet Union, Politics in Russia, as well as Russian History and the Faculty of Arts. I personally missed the days when I was teaching Soviet politics and did not have to change my lectures notes substantially year after year. However, with the retirement of Professor Rigby, Dr. Miller, and Mr. Jukes, and the breakup of the Soviet Union, Russian studies lost its gloss at the ANU. The Department of Russian Language also diminished, with only Dr. Windle, assisted by Roche Ireland and Margaret Travis, and retirement, keeping the language going. And I continue to teach Russian politics. However, since 1994, when our center was established and Dr. Nuzhanov joined us shortly thereafter, we have been trying to inject some life into Russian and Eurasian studies at the ANU. Although the main focus of our center is on the Muslim Middle East and Central Asia, we have held a number of relevant conferences and published books such as Russia in Search of Its Future, in conjunction with the teaching of such courses as Politics in Russia, Politics in Central Asia, and New States of Eurasia. We are proud to host this year's conference for the Australasian Association for Communist and Post-Communist Studies, which brings together distinguished academics from Australia and New Zealand institutions. We hope the conference will provide a further impetus to the study of Eurasia, a region crucial to Australia and the world as a whole. The conference theme is 2 decades without the Soviet Union, transformations in Eurasian space. Bob Hawke, the former Prime Minister of Australia, was very much in the midst of the events such as the collapse of communism in East Europe and Eastern Europe and demise of the Soviet Union. Bob took a leading part in the international effort to free a prominent Soviet dissident, Alexander Kolmiansky, who was arrested in 1984. He visited the Soviet Union and China many times, meeting their leaders and observing change unfolding in these countries. In a speech at the Australian National University in 2009, Bob stated, "There is no more single important decision taken by any national leader in the 20th century, that tumultuous century, than Deng Xiaoping's decision to reform China's economy." Bob also stated that I made my first visit to China in 1978. Now, after 81 visits, and he's just about to make his 82nd visit. 88 visits to China. I have had the opportunity firsthand over the whole of the period of this move to a market economy to witness the impact of that decision upon China, the region, and the world. It was worth noting that the spectacular economic growth of China that emerged in the 1980s spooked the Soviet leadership, eroding its confidence in the command economic model. This was an important element in the eventual undermining and collapse of the Soviet Union. He also stated, "I witnessed firsthand the impact of Chinese economic growth on the Soviet Union during a visit to Moscow in the 1980s. What was meant to be a 20-minute meeting with Mikhail Gorbachev ended up lasting over 3 hours." Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hawke needs no introduction whatsoever, but for the benefit of our foreign visitors, I just thought that I would refresh your memory and say a few biographical words about Bob. The Honourable Bob Hawke, a graduate of the University of Western Australia in Laws and Arts Economics, and Oxford University's Rhodes Scholar in Letters, has had a very distinguished and colourful career in Australian politics over a long period of time. After serving as the President of the Australian Council of Trade Unions, that's ACTU, for a decade, from 1970, of course that was in the early part of that decade that I arrived in Australia, and I remember at University of Western Australia, all the students were talking about Bob Hawke, the president of the ACTU, and I had no idea who was Bob Hawke. I had no idea what was ACTU because I just arrived. I had no idea about Australian politics. But of course, my lecturer told me, he said, look, he's on television every night. You just have to. So in the college, then I saw him. And of course, all these students were cheering Bob Hawke, and they were all wanted to follow him as a model. And ever since then, of course, I've become very much devoted to try to not emulate Bob Hawke. That's impossible, but to learn from him and whatever he says as much as possible. In 1980, he was elected to the Federal Parliament of Australia, and in February 1983 became the leader of the opposition in a very short period of time. He led the Labour Party to victory in the general election in March 1983, and in winning 3 successive elections became Australia's longest-serving Labour Prime Minister. He ceased to be Prime Minister in December 1991 and resigned from the Parliament in February 1992. In August 2009, Mr. Hawke was given natural life membership of the Australian Labour Party. His post-parliamentary career has included adjunct professor in the Research Schools of Pacific Studies and Social Sciences at Australian National University, so he's not new to the ANU at all. Honorary visiting professor in industrial relations at the University of Sydney, and membership of the Advisory Council of the Institute for International Studies at Stanford University in the United States. He is an honorary fellow at the University College of Oxford and holds honorary degrees from a number of universities around the world, and I won't really go into the details of mentioning those universities. Mr. Hawke was made a Companion of the Order of Australia in 1979, and in October 2009 he was awarded by the Papua New Guinea government the highest award for non-citizen, the Grand Companion of the Order of Lugugu. Is that the right pronunciation?
Difficult to achieve.
Current honorary position, his current honorary positions include member of the Advisory Council at the United States Studies Center at the University of Sydney, member of the Council of Advisors of the Boer Forum for Asia, member of the International Advisory Council of the Australian American Leadership Dialogue, chairman of the Hawke Research Institute Advisory Board at the Bob Hawke Prime Ministerial Centre, University of South Australia, chairman of the Committee of Experts on Membership of the Education International, member of the Advisory Board at Deliberative Issues Australia, patron of the Australian Institute of Employment Rights, and patron of Indigenous Engineering Inc. I'm very surprised that Bob is still not teaching. We would love to invite you to come and give a series of lectures for us, relatively in our centre. It's now my very great honour and privilege to invite Mr. Hawke to open the